Welcome to the t-roh Show. This is t-roh Show Special Edition number 5. This is your host, Keith. We have some very important news to get out, and we have an international, this is basically an international public notice to everyone, including the United States and Donald J. Trump. The information that we have today, folks, that needs to get to the people, those that call themselves U.S. citizens, citizens of the United States, state residents, and basically worship the company flag, which is the 50 stars and the stars and stripes and all that. You probably, if you have the greatest amount of faith in there, in that, and believe that's a country, you're probably not going to like today. However, I do have to disclose that the government of the United States of America is not a part of any socialist party, communist party, or anything of that nature. As a matter of fact, our politics are generally the same. We believe in we have a republic form of government where the people run the national government called the National Assembly. Yes, they're general postmasters, however, they do also qualify as people. The government of the United States of America is a subject of the law of nations, and it does possess the original General Post Office of 1775, the Articles of Association of 1774, the Declaration of Independence that had to be rewritten because it was written incorrectly, the Articles of Confederation of 1781, and that's where it stops. How all that came about will be disclosed later on. It was all done legally, lawfully, basically through a claim of the metes and bounds of the United States of America and seaward boundaries that was done, I could possibly say, on accident, without intent to take the original country back. We have discussed this on the t-roh Show in previous episodes. However, what you're about to see, someone in this country is trying to help. Someone did some research that was unbelievable. We found the research, and it brought about a much greater understanding as to what we were doing, why we're doing it, and it is all complete. So I'll get started. Please bring your mindset back to the original, not the Civil War, but the 1787 that you guys claim as your Constitution, and the 1789 when you claim that Constitution was ratified by all the states, and that the people elected those people to go in to the Constitutional Convention and completely sign a brand new Constitution or fix the Articles of Confederation and all those arguments. We have discussed all the other arguments already, and every one of them has been valid. This one you're about to see is going to seal the deal, and you'll understand afterwards why some statements are going to be made in this international public notice. Just want you to understand why first. So with this information here, it may be old to some, but you never put it together. So we're about to put it together for you today. It says the article's failure to empower the central government to carry out essential functions was their primary weakness. Well, that's a political opinion. That's all that was. The articles protected the sovereignty of the states at the expense of the central government. That's what's supposed to happen. Which lacked the power to raise revenue or conduct diplomatic relations. That's not true. Diplomatic relations were done correctly. The central government also could not manage the Western territories in an effective manner. That's also not true. They could have. They had the Navy. They had the original Continental Army. They could manage it if they needed to. After the Continental Congress decided to act on the problem, 12 of the 13 states, Rhode Island abstained, which means Article 13 of the Articles of Confederation, where it said if there's going to be any form of amending the articles, that they needed all 13 states. That right there originally should give you the hint that there was something wrong. There was something happening that was something wrong. It says chose 70 delegates to represent them at the federal convention. Actually, it was not a federal convention, it was a constitutional convention. Out of those appointees, only 55 attended. 40 of the 55 attendees had served in the Continental Congress at some point in their careers. Right there. I'm gonna bring this to today just in a second. Okay? However, had served in the Continental Congress at some point in their careers. Had served in the Continental Congress at some point in their careers. Let's bring this to today. The federal so-called had an election here in 2016, and a lot of Democrats were pushed out. Now, can those Democrats convene a constitutional convention and declare a new national government? They're not even in office. They're not even in office. So those Democrats, can they go and convene a constitutional convention and completely change, go to a brand new constitution and declare that the national government? That would be like George Bush Jr. or George Bush Sr. writing an executive order right now. He's not in office. He can't write an executive order. So the delegates that were supposedly there were not even in office at the time. Here's another doc. Someone did some serious research, because here's a list of the delegates that were supposedly there. Now, this is when this was their name, this was the state, years attended. This is Articles of Association, 1774, Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, and Constitution. The X signifies what they signed, what year they were in office, and all that. Okay, so let's go down to this guy. I will give you a certain amount here, okay? We're going to give a little bit of a lenience here, just for kicks and giggles, okay? Now, Abraham Baldwin, who signed the Constitution, you'll see that X over here, okay? He was supposedly in office at 1787 to 1788, okay? So that's one. That's one guy, possibly. We don't even know if he was in office at the time. Okay? So, that's this guy right here. That's one. Let's go down to this guy. Okay? He was in office in 1785 from Delaware. He signed the Constitution. He was not a delegate in office. You don't get that vote. That signature is completely disqualified. because he was not in office as a delegate under the Articles of Confederation of 1781 at the time. He was already out of office. Okay, now here's this guy, William Blount, 1786 to 1787. He may have been in office. So let's give him one. May have been in office at the time. Don't know for sure because they supposedly had the Constitutional Convention in 1787. So we'll just give you that one for kicks and giggles. Here's another one, Pierce Butler, who signed the Constitution, and he was in office in 1787. Okay, we'll give you that one there. That's 3. All right, Daniel Carroll in Maryland was in office in 1781 to 1783. He was in office for 2 years. He did sign the Constitution. You don't get that one. That's disqualified. He wasn't in office at the time under the Articles of Confederation. This guy, George Clymer, Pennsylvania, did not have the authority to sign and change the national government. He was in office in 1782. You don't get that one. 1788 to 1789, Jonathan Dayton. Okay, you may get that one. We don't know for sure if he was in office. It appears that he was, so we'll give you that. That's 4. There's John Dickinson of Delaware, 1779. I'll give you that one. That's 5. John Dickinson, Pennsylvania, 1776 to 1774. He was not in office at the time. You don't get that one. That signature is gone. 1776 to 1788, or 1786, I'm sorry, to 1788. That was between the 1787 and 1789. We'll give you that one. Thomas Fitzsimmons, no. He was only in office 1782 to 1783. He wasn't in office at the time. You don't get that one. Benjamin Franklin was not even in office. Never held the office of delegate. You don't get that one. Didn't have the authority to sign it or change the national government. Nicholas Gilman, 1787 to 1789. Possibly give you that one. That's 7. 1785 to 1787. We don't know for sure. There's a little footnote here. This guy here, we don't know for sure whether he was in office at the time. So that's gonna be a maybe. This guy was in office, Alexander Hamilton. We know what a prick he was, and we also know what a advocate he was for the Bank of New York Mellon. We'll count him, but he's also a traitor to this country. Thank God somebody shot him. Huh. Any more X's? This guy here, Jared, didn't have the authority to sign it. He was not a delegate under the Articles of Confederation at the time. He didn't have the authority to sign a new constitution. Daniel, 1781. Sorry, buddy. No, you don't get that one either. William Samuel Johnson, possible. That's a possibility because he was only in office until 1787. So we'll possibly give you that one. Maybe on Rufus King. Not for sure. Okay, John Langdon, no. Was not in office at the time. William Livingston, sorry, was not in office at the time. James Madison appears he was in office at the time, so we'll give you that one. James McHenry, sorry, buddy, didn't have the authority to sign it and change the national government. Thomas Mifflin, nope, didn't have it. Governor Morris, New York, nope, was not a delegate at the time. Robert Morris, no, was not a delegate at the time. Possible Charles Pinckney, we'll give you that one. George Reed was not a delegate at the time. John Rutledge, not a delegate at the time. Roger Sherman was not a delegate at the time. Richard Dobbs, not a delegate at the time. George Washington, not a delegate at the time. Wasn't even a part of it. Had no authority to sign anything. The difference between power and authority. You have to have the authority. The authority comes from the people. The people voted in the delegates. The delegates were in office at the time. We're showing you the difference. Hugh Williamson, maybe. Give you that one. (1786) James Wilson, sorry, buddy, no. We're not in office at the time. Was not in office at the time. That's it. 13 people that may have had the authority at the time to sign something to change the national government. However, Article 13 says that if anything were to change, all 13 states and all delegates had to sign it. So bring that to today. This would be like Hillary Clinton as a senator putting together a constitutional convention with all the Democrats and even Republicans that were not in office at the time to sign a brand new constitution and declare it the national government. Is that valid? Anybody on here want to comment? I got a bunch of guests here. Most American nationals and general postmasters. Would Hillary Clinton or anybody else be able to bring about a constitutional convention and completely change the national government without any vote from the people whatsoever?
Absolutely not. They're not in office. They don't vote. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So guess what, folks? Here's your international public notice. The government of the United States of America, that's the uppercase T, that is under the Articles of Confederation of 1781 and has the original General Post Office and is now under the Articles of Confederation as amended August 5th, 2015, is the national government. Everyone else is notwithstanding because every one of your claims are under a constitution that was never ratified by any of the states whatsoever. All the men that signed it were not even in office at the time. It's a fraud. And it's been a fraud on its face for 240 years. You can't commit a fraud and then justify it later. Oh, well, today we have a constitution, a flag, and all this other crap. Okay? That's why it operates as a federal corporation, because it was a fraud as a national government. It has no authority to make any national laws whatsoever. The states today cannot justify it because the original document was a fraud. It was never passed. If it was never passed, then there was nothing, no social compact in existence. Because, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, so two things to keep in mind is, one is that not all the delegates were there at the convention to amend the Articles of Confederation. And number two, the ones that did sign, most of them were not even in office when it was signed. So that's two strikes.
And
Major,
three, they changed the venue.
Yeah. Every one of them, every one of those men that signed are treasonous against the original national government. They're criminals. They committed treason against the country. And every one of you folks out there are calling them founding fathers. They're not founding fathers, they're treasonous. And deserve to get hung. You don't have, or you had a dormant national government. You grew up in a dormant national government under the Articles of Confederation. But all of the, what you call federal laws today, folks, completely null and void. Why? Because this national government says so. That's why. So the United States on Manhattan Island is going to get a bill from the government of the United States of America. The true national government. And that bill is consisting of all taxes collected since 1787 or 1789. All taxes you owe this government. You have no claim to this land. You have no claim to anything. Everything that you have touched is a fraud. And you have been lying to the world for over 240 years.
Those taxes you're talking about actually constitute the entire gross national product of this nation.
And guess where all that tax money is going to go, folks? It's going back to the people. That is how much you guys are owed. Everyone in this country is going to get a piece of that. Every one of your families have been stolen from, a usurper has come in under a false premise and a false claim and have been stealing from you since the beginning. Since you were born. Why do you think you guys, no one has any last wills and testaments? Where are your oaths and affirmations to a government? They don't have any. They never had the authority. And they know it. We have tried to work with them. They've ignored us. Now we know why they're ignoring us. Because they owe us a bunch. They owe the United States of America a bunch of money. A bunch of assets, a bunch of everything. Because everything they have touched is stolen. Guess what, folks? all your railroads belong to this government, to be given to the rightful owner. They have kept the Indian nations in bondage for way over the time that's even biblically allowed. And the people that earned their independence through the revolution, that formed those 13 states, you have dishonored every single one of those families, every man, woman, and child that died under the sword or gun of an English soldier and a Dutch soldier. You've dishonored your forefathers. You've dishonored your families. And it's time it stops. That stops today. We're going to honor those people that died in the Revolutionary War so that you guys could have your freedom, your independent states, and everything else. And the true national government, the government of the United States of America, is taking action. To make sure that this changes. Now, if your family members died for that 50-star flag, I'm sorry that your family members died for that. But none of your oaths of office were real. It was a fake. Because it never was a national government. You were told it was a national government because they relied on the ignorance of the next generation. So they raised them up into something that's a fraud. They're going to defend that to the end. Well, this is my government. This is this. I died for that flag. I died for this, or my family members all died. We served in this, and blah blah blah. I'm sorry that you were defrauded. But we don't have time to make concessions for people. The truth is the truth. The facts are the facts. This is Keith, your host, but I'm also Keith Edward Livingway, who is the successor to Ebenezer Hazard. That was the last Postmaster General of the Confederacy. He died without a successor in 1817. Because these treasonous bastards wouldn't accept him as Postmaster General for the so-called newly formed federal government. I wonder why that was. That's when they lost all chain of title. But chain of title wasn't the key. That wasn't what George Washington wanted. They wanted their own national government. That's all good and well, but the people didn't agree with that. But I know that was a little minor inconvenience for you. So if you started out usurping and you started out oppressing, why does anybody in this country think it's going to be any different today? We have all been raised up in this usurping federal, what they call federal intrusion. We've all been raised in it, but dealing with it our whole lives. Why does anyone in this country believe that's going to change when that's how it started? What do you think you're going to get in there and we get all Christians in there and that's going to change it? It never was a Christian government and never will be because it was never a government. It's barely a company. That's why it had to be registered over in England. If you don't believe it, go look it up. Go look it up for yourselves. And go see it, even if these 13 folks that may have had the authority to sign it. Remember, there was a lot more delegates than that. Not all of them signed it. So, if not all of them signed it, where's this claim that unanimous consent comes in? Unanimous means everyone. If there were 55 so-called delegates that showed up, they definitely weren't delegates under the Articles of Confederation. We know that for sure. If there were 55 of them and only 39 signed, where's your unanimous consent? How can you make that claim? You can't. It's a fraud. It wasn't unanimous consent. It was oppression. And right after that, they brought slavery right back. Because under the Articles of Confederation, folks, there was no slavery. They brought it right back. That quick. So the real national treasury, under the real seal of 1781, the United States, on Manhattan Island, in the Bank of New York Mellon, you're getting a bill. You owe. Your debt, gone. There's no debt. There is no national debt because there was no national government that created the debt. Anybody else have anything else to say before we end? Tony, anybody?
That's some hard-hitting information.
It's rough.
No, if we didn't think of them, we can always do another show.
That'll be fine. Okay, thank you for listening to the t-roh Show. You have had international public notice. Folks, the government of the United States of America is hereby proclaimed the real national government. Have a good day.